felt some kind of disturbance in the force, as if millions of voices cried out, "Aww," and would not be silenced. Anyway, it drew my mind back to Yoda's theme and all it communicates about our favorite Jedi Master. There are many who have looked into Yoda's theme, broken it down and discussed it. I hope to bring them together and see if I can add to the discussion. I especially want to give credit to a podcast, The Art of the Score. I found their podcast after I started researching and analyzing Yoda's theme myself, but they have a lot of ideas similar to my own, and they often say them better. They're professional film composers too, so check out their stuff. Fittingly, Yoda's theme will surprise you from beginning to end. Here's the version we're most familiar with. Have you considered that it appears in the bass clef? Songwriters and listeners usually expect to hear the melody in a soprano range on top of everything else. This stems back to early operas where the lead roles went to the sopranos and tenors because their sound carries best over the orchestra. Luke went looking for a mighty warrior, so it was easy for Yoda to appear literally and sonically under our noses. But he isn't sneaky. Compare him to Jabba the Hutt. Jabba's also in the bass clef like most villains. In Jabba's case, the tune wobbles and waddles and kind of squats, while Yoda starts in the bass register. He's firm, confident, but gentle. And before long, he shows his true self as a hero. And Yoda does have heroic traits. Look at the basic shape of Luke's theme. We open with a fifth, travel down before making a ludicrous jump. Luke is hungry for adventure and overeager to take risks. Yoda opens with a fifth, this time going down before taking a more calculated leap. But lurking inside this melody, Yoda has a ludicrous leap of his own. Though they have very different characters, at their core, they are more closely related than meets the immediate senses. This is depicted out loud in the movie. This version we all love never appears exactly this way. The first hints of Yoda's theme are during the quirky, I call it the Grover phase. Yoda appears without any music. The first hint of his theme is over a very suspicious chord. We're looking at Yoda from Luke's point of view. Even in Yoda's hut, when he drops his act, we don't hear a firm declaration of who Yoda is. Williams uses the Force theme to clue us in first. Then a minor version of Luke's theme as Luke realizes he's not going to be trained. Yoda now props himself up as a dignified Jedi Master, and we hear the middle section. Let's talk about that. It starts here. We spent part of the song in a more minor sound, so here the bridge starts by going up the minor scale in a way that lands in a major key. Where the main Yoda melody is steady and deep, the bridge is more brisk, lively, and chaotic. A couple of interesting things happen on a technical level. The chords here are very stable, even though the melody is jumpy. By themselves, it's a plagal cadence, famous in church choirs. Compare them to the main verse. The main verse has a more exotic harmony. You might know it as Lydian. Yoda has a quirky side, but he never goes off the rails. Even this part follows a predictable pattern of chords, each descending a third apart. The other moment that fascinates me about the bridge is that the chord sequence goes down, but the tune goes up. What were the alternatives? Well, here they are both going down. And here they are both going up. Neither sounds as satisfying, and there's something thrilling in hearing Yoda lift something as his environment sinks. So why use the bridge as Yoda first talks about his teaching career? It might be to taunt Luke just a little more, to say, oh, who still thinks he can give the orders? It might also be something of a small fanfare. Yoda doesn't seem to like lording over others, but he will be given his due respect. Finally, we hear his theme in a dignified way, but it hasn't come to full fruition yet. Luke is not convinced of what his teacher can do. So we come to my favorite Yoda moment, and this explanation coincides very much with the art of the score. This is where Williams imitates the transition from doubt to belief. Luke failed to lift the X-Wing and flat out rejects Yoda's encouragement. The horn plays the opening to Yoda's theme in minor, but the oboe echoes in major. And we hear more of the orchestra as if they're the ones lifted out of the swamp. And so it builds and grows Finally, we perceive Yoda for the luminescent being that he is. His theme is loud and clear. But before we hear the rest of his theme, the scene cuts and the film moves on. This movie wasn't made for a full performance of Yoda's entire theme. But Williams went ahead and recorded Yoda's theme apart from any movie context. He also did this with a few other themes like Leia's and the Empire's and the Ewoks. But that just speaks to how much he treasures his themes. With so many directors requesting that soundtracks not call too much attention to themselves, John Williams makes sure his melodies take on a life of their own, apart from their films, as pure music. I'm curious to hear what you think about Yoda's theme or Star Wars music in general. Feel free to leave me a comment. Lastly, before I go, I have some extra time at the end of this video, so I want to pay tribute to my Yoda, F. Dean Madsen. He was my composition professor at Utah State University. He passed away last week at the age of 81. He was very warm, very demanding, and very influential in how I compose and how I think about not just music, but about other people. I will miss him, but I also choose to honor him by making my compositions and all my deeds the best they can be. So thank you, Dr. Madsen. And to all of you watching this, until next time, on behalf of composers everywhere, thanks for listening.